Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas from groundbreaking sources.
All right, today we're diving into Yuval Noah Harari's Sapiens. And let me tell you, this is a book that's going to make you question, well, pretty much everything you think you know about our own history. It kicks off with this really provocative idea. What if our rise to the top, our greatest success, actually came at a terrible price? Not just for the planet, but for us too. Let's dig in.
Okay, first things first, we've got to rewind the clock, and I mean way back. Long before cities, before writing, before any of that. Homo sapiens, that's us, we were just another animal. And honestly, we weren't all that special.
And this is a huge reality check. Forget the image of the mighty hunter. That wasn't us. For millions of years, we were basically middle-of-the-pack scavengers. Kind of timid, actually. We were living in constant fear of predators, and mostly just eating the scraps that bigger, tougher animals left behind. We were, as Harari says, the underdogs of the savannah.
And here's something wild. We weren't even alone. The Earth back then was a much more human place, you could say. There were at least 6 different human species living at the same time. So while we were in Africa, you had Neanderthals in Europe, Homo erectus in Asia, and a bunch of others. We weren't the main characters. We were just one branch on a pretty crowded family tree.
So you'd think our special features would be all upside, right? Nope, they came with some serious trade-offs. Our big brains? Total energy hogs. They suck up about a quarter of our body's energy, even when we're just sitting around. And walking upright? Yeah, it's great for using tools, but it also gave us back pain and made childbirth incredibly dangerous. To deal with that, our babies are born pretty much half-baked, totally helpless and dependent for years. That's a huge commitment for the whole group.
So, how in the world did this unremarkable ape suddenly take over the entire planet? What was our secret weapon? Well, it wasn't bigger muscles or sharper claws. The revolution that changed everything happened inside our heads, around 70,000 years ago. Harari calls it the cognitive revolution.
It all came down to language, but not just any language. See, step 1 is being able to shout, "Hey, watch out, there's a lion!" That's useful. Step 2 is gossip, talking about who's who in the tribe. And that's super important for building trust in small groups. But the real game changer, the thing that no other animal can do, was step 3. We started talking about things that aren't real. Things that exist only in our imagination.
And this is the perfect example. Just look at this thing. It's called the Lion Man, and it's over 30,000 years old. And there were no Lion Man walking around back then, obviously. So this little statue is incredible proof that our ancestors were already thinking about things that don't physically exist, spirits, myths, gods. This ability to create and believe in shared fictions, that was our superpower.
And this brings us to what's maybe the most important idea in the whole book, what Harari calls imagined realities. These are just stories that we all agree to believe in. And because we all believe, we can cooperate in massive numbers. I mean, think about it. What is money? It's just pieces of paper or numbers on a screen. It only has value because we all agree it does. What's a country? It's a story we tell about borders and flags that unites millions of complete strangers.
For modern example, Harari points to a company like Peugeot. So, what is Peugeot? It's not its cars, right? Or its factories, or its employees. You could get rid of all that stuff, and the company Peugeot would still exist. How? Because it's what lawyers call a legal fiction. It's an imagined reality, a story that we all buy into, which allows it to do things like own property and sign contracts. It's this kind of storytelling that allows for incredible, large-scale human cooperation. But this amazing new power for cooperation, it had a really dark side. Armed with these new mental tools, Homo sapiens started spreading out of Africa, and wherever we went, we left a trail of absolute devastation.
So, when our ancestors first set foot in Australia about 45,000 years ago, the place was like something out of a fantasy novel, filled with giant animals. But just a few thousand years after we showed up, almost all of those large animals were just gone, wiped out. And it wasn't a one-off. The exact same pattern repeated when humans got to the Americas. Mammoths, saber-toothed cats, giant ground sloths, poof, gone.
Now, the usual suspect for this kind of thing is climate change, but Harari says that alibi just doesn't fly. Why? Well, for one, Australia's giant animals had already survived plenty of climate shifts. And why would climate change only kill off the big land animals but leave the sea creatures alone? The timing is just too perfect. Mass extinction happens right after humans arrive, again and again. The verdict? Harari says the evidence makes us look like an ecological serial killer. Our destructive power wasn't just aimed outwards, though. Around 12,000 years ago, we turned it on ourselves with what Harari calls history's biggest fraud.
And this might be the most controversial idea in the entire book. We're all taught that the agricultural revolution, the shift to farming, was this huge leap forward for humanity, right? Well, Harari says, think again. He argues that for the average person, it was a total disaster.
And the evidence is literally in our bones. When archaeologists look at ancient skeletons, they find that foragers were actually taller and healthier than the first farmers. Farming meant back-breaking labor. Hello, slipped discs and arthritis. And their diet got way worse. Instead of eating a wide variety of things, they depended on just 1 or 2 grains. And if that single crop failed, everybody starved.
So the big question is, why did we do it? If it was so bad, why switch? Harari calls it the luxury trap. And it was sneaky. It didn't happen all at once. It started small. Maybe a group decided to plant a little wheat to supplement their diet, just to make life a tiny bit easier. But that little bit of extra food means the population grows. And pretty soon, that little extra becomes something you absolutely depend on to feed all the new mouths. And before you know it, you're stuck. You're working way harder just to stay afloat. The trap snaps shut, and there's no going back.
And this whole trap thing, it points to one of the book's deepest and frankly most uncomfortable ideas. This huge gap between the success of our species as a whole and the actual happiness of the individuals within it.
Just look at domesticated animals for a second. From a purely evolutionary point of view, chickens and cows are wildly successful, right? There are billions of them on the planet. But if you look at the life of an individual cow or chicken in a factory farm, it's often a life of profound misery. So their species is successful, but the individual experience is just awful.
And that right there is the cold, hard logic of evolution that Harari really wants us to face. Evolutionary success isn't about happiness or well-being. It's just about one thing, making more copies of your DNA. That's it. The agricultural revolution was a massive success for Homo sapiens DNA. We multiplied like crazy. But for most of the people who actually lived through it, it made life worse.
So this is where Sapiens leaves us. You know, we went from these insignificant apes just trying to survive to basically being gods, able to reshape the planet and even life itself. By every evolutionary measure, we are the most successful species of all time. But the book leaves us with this final, really haunting question. We became so powerful, but are we any happier? And that's something to think about.